You're probably looking at me during a sound check. I am awaiting my co-host for the day. Hopefully, you're listening in and go ahead and check in with me. You'll see everybody come one by one. I just try to make sure that all the technical issues are ironed out before. So you're going to see me go black for a minute. If you're joining us early, go ahead and put your questions in the chat and we'll be sure to get to them. We'll do best we can. We have quite a show lined up. Lezlie Gar and Ashley Watkins are going to join Jack and I on the show today. As you see that I am very, well, let's say I'm celebrating perhaps that springtime is here. So I got one of my spring fedoras on. Let me know how you like it or if you like it. Jack,
Hey,
how's it going?
good morning, good afternoon.
Yes, sir. We're live, so just doing our pre-game chat, uh, getting ready for the folks.
Yeah,
And here comes Ashley.
nice.
Ashley's about to join us. I was just telling the people that I am excited about springtime, so I bought out a spring fedora.
I like that.
Yes,
That's it.
sir.
Is that it?
There she is. Hey,
Good.
Ashley.
Ashley. How
Hi.
are you?
Hey,
Good, good. How are you?
Good, good, good. Jack just arrived a second ago, and we are live on LinkedIn. So we'll start the show here in a few minutes. But like I said, we
Okay.
always have a pre-game chat
yeah.
during this particular time. It is beautiful outside here in Chicago. It is
Raining here.
6. Yes, in the 60s here. Well, it rained last night, if it helps any at all. So, we're enjoying this weather here. How about you? You said it's raining?
It's kind of drizzly, gray, depressing.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Ashley, you're in Alabama.
I
That's
am.
right?
I am.
Yes. Yep. And it's always hot
It
there.
has
I
to be
don't think
warm,
you.
right?
Well, no, not always. We just had it was hot one week and then we had a lot of rain and then it was cold. So,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. So,
okay.
right now,
When
I
you
think we're
say
probably
cold,
inching up into the 70s, but yeah, it's back and forth
Okay.
here. Yeah.
when
We
you
have
say
very
cold, how cold is
bipolar
cold?
weather.
How cold is
How
what
cold? Yeah.
he really wants to know.
I'm going to pop off just a second
Yeah.
here.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Do your thing. We'll still keep it up. Yeah, I lived in Tampa.
Yeah.
I went to high school, community college, and college in Tampa, and the 60s was a little chilly if you're used to having 80 and 90-degree weather.
It's so
If you
funny,
get
right?
it
How that
is
is.
it is, but you get seduced by the heat for most of the year. That those 2.5 months where it's kind of chilly. I mean, 50, 40, 50s is a big deal. But being here in Chicago, it's 40, 50s is a heat wave.
It's so wild. So I have a buddy who I know since elementary school, and he moved down to Atlanta. And
Uh-huh.
he's like, now that when it's 60 there, he's putting on his winter jacket. I'm like,
Yeah,
how is that possible? We grew up
isn't that the
cold.
funniest thing?
Like, how did that change? I mean, like, you're so used to being, snow and cold and ice, and now 60,
Yes.
you like the winter jacket. Stuff like that.
Yes, I know. If you're watching us and getting ready for the show here, we'll be starting in a few minutes. Put down, you say hi to us, tell us where you're from, so that we can laugh at you if you're from Texas and you're freezing at 60 degrees. So yeah, we are. I lived in Michigan for a few years as well, and that was kind of a culture shock because I just moved up from Tampa. When I moved to Tampa, I moved in July. I mean, to Michigan, July. But then came November. It was like, oh boy, it's been a while since I've been in that kind of weather.
Yeah, I went to Chicago in March. Well, the first time I went to Chicago was in July, and we did I think it was a food festival. So it was, I
You
forgot the
did
name of it.
the Taste of Chicago.
Taste of
probably.
Chicago. Yeah, we went to Taste of Chicago. And then the next time I came, it was in March. So I was like, all right. So I'll, take a light jacket or whatever. Like, no, I literally had to go and buy another jacket. I had some little flat LA shoes. No, I was like, nope, I'm switching to boots. I was like, this is a reason for me to shop. I'm like, this is horrible.
Ma'am.
It's so cold here.
Yes, ma'am. It is not. Chicago's like nowhere else, but it's even worse if you live in Canada, and you get that Canada breeze is like no other that you ever felt in your life, ever.
When I travel somewhere else, I always have to buy a coat, boots, and so I was like, we don't need that. I don't think here I wore a coat the entire winter.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that life anymore.
Wait, you didn't wear a coat the whole winter?
No, the coldest I think it got was maybe 40 or 50-ish. Well, it would get like colder at night. So down into the teens, and we had snow at some point, but it wasn't enough for, anything to shut down. The schools were closed because they didn't want the buses running or, or whatever, but it wasn't anywhere near what somebody else would call a real winter. Our coats are like pea coats. You guys wear pea coats for fashion. We wear them as a regular coat.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's funny you should mention that, because when I moved from Tampa to Michigan, I had a pea coat, and it adjusted. It was just really nice to have. And pea coats go in any weather, even in freezing weather like
it
Chicago
did not work
has.
for me in New York. I
Oh, really? Well, you see, I'm a native New Yorker, so I know
that's different.
but New York doesn't get as cold as Chicago does.
It doesn't.
And not even by any stretch of imagination. Yes, the fun part was the winter that I had a coat that busted. The buttons had busted, the zipper had busted, and that particular day with the winds, it was like 85 below or something like that. And so, unless you have a zipper and some other layers, you will know freeze bite really well. And I tell you, that's not fun either.
I was not
prepared.
Go into
that. Yeah.
Not prepared at all. Now I have more. I have earmuffs and gloves and leg warmers and scarves and all that stuff, but I did not initially. I did not, and I was in for a rude awakening. I think it was like 19, and I was like, "Yeah, we were." People were out too. They were having fun and stuff, and I'm about to die. I'm thinking my chapstick and everything was gonna freeze. I was like, "Yeah, I probably shouldn't have put on this this lip gloss."
If you were 19, you were likely in college, I assume.
No. It was 19 degrees.
Oh, 19 wow. Yeah, that's cold for everybody and anybody. My wife has she has a polar bear type of thing going on sometimes. So like when it's like, she won't wear a coat sometimes when it's like, if she's just going to the car and back, she won't wear a coat. And I'm like, oh, how can you do it? It's just a walk. It's not far to the car, but sometimes she'll go out with that coat. It's like, how do you do that? So
my son's like that. I have no idea. And
both my sons are like that.
I don't get it.
Yeah, both of my sons are like that. They got it from their mother, but I think part of it was they went to they went to private high schools where a lot of the kids didn't wear coats, so they felt out of place wearing coats. So they became accustomed to the cold weather. And
Mhm.
even to this day, they both will go out without a big coat for the most part, except when it's like 40 below, like
Mm.
we get once or twice a year.
Yeah.
But we had Lezlie was here and then she disappeared, so we hopefully Lezlie will be back in the next couple of minutes before we
She
start.
thought she got the wrong place. We're talking about the weather. She's
well
thinking it's the
well
weather
I
channel.
gave everybody a fair warning that we have our pregame chat, and a lot of us are not willing to do that, Jack, like you and I. So I gave people a fair shot and let them know when you come on, we're live. So hopefully Lezlie will make it back in the next 2 minutes. But for those of you who are watching, thank you very much for watching. We're going to start the show here in about 2 minutes. So stand by, as I thought we'll be able to start early since I saw Lezlie, then she disappeared. So we'll see about that. So having lived in Tampa for all of that time, that at this was my favorite time of year because this was about as cool as it was going to get. Whatever it feels like in Tampa from April, especially May, until September is like 90 degrees with 100% humidity every single day, which is the other part that I could not stand. I mean, you can dress up for winter for as much as what dressing up looks like, but you can't dress down enough
Yeah.
in the heat. And I imagine Alabama's the same way.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do once it gets into the 80s and 90s and sometimes in the hundreds. It's just you can drink as much water as you want. You can strip down to your tanks and shorts and you can whatever.
Yeah,
No, we have
yeah.
I think this year, I mean it's warming up pretty okay considering, I mean we just had snow a few weeks ago. Um so yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's all over the
Yeah.
place here.
Yep. Thanks for Michael for checking in. He says, I bet that We Fedora keeps your head cool. You're already cool-headed guy. Thank you, Michael.
I
It's his
agree.
birthday today, by the way.
We try.
It's Mike's birthday today, Mark.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
I see. And you always have the jacket, but nobody ever says that
Yeah.
about you. Uh, so I'm still waiting
Where is
for
she?
Lezlie.
All right, you know what? While we
Like I
wait for
said, she
Leslie,
was,
I'm gonna just check and make sure my dogs and cats are taken care of. Let me just take
yeah, especially that Mr. Jiggles. You he has two cats and they both get starred at one particular point
Oh, okay. Yeah.
on the screen.
Well,
So
this time my dogs aren't here, so I don't have to worry about any
oh,
interference.
is that right? Oh, you have dogs. You
Yes,
have
I have two dogs.
get out of here. What kind of dogs are there?
Mini Schnauzer mix and a toy poodle mix. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome.
they're little guys, but they like to be featured in my videos. They like to jump up in my lap and walk across. Like if I'm sitting at the couch, they like to walk across the back of the couch just to be on
Yeah.
camera. So
Yeah.
none of that today.
My son and his wife have two dogs. One's a Siberian Husky, and the other one is
Oh,
a toy Shih Tzu.
okay.
Very contrasting personalities. And he
Hmm.
told me like a couple of weeks ago that his name is Zeus. Zeus left out the house and went rogue for a little
Okay.
while they were out. So so they came back home from a dinner party, and Layla's the Shih Tzu. She was sitting there by the door waiting for her missus, and
Hmm.
of course Zeus. They found him a couple of doors down.
Mm.
They're very, very different. I just find that so fascinating.
Yeah,
But
and
we
mine are
love
too.
them both.
They run away though.
Oh, do
They
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 run
go on
away?
their little adventures at times too. So
Yeah, Debria, thanks for checking in. She has two
all
mini
right.
schnauzers. All right, there she is. We had the
All right.
quad squad here. So we are going to start with the show. And just so that you know, again, this is my spring fedora. Uh, this is the people are used to the dark colors. I have spring fedoras that are actually kind of light, and so that people will be up to date. Anyhow, Job Seeker Nation, what's happening? Thank you very much for joining us here. As usual, we have Jack at recruiter.io, and of course, Mark Anthony Dice here. We have two guests joining us from their parts of the country, and I'm sure they're opposite ends at this particular point. We have Lezlie Gard. Thank you very much for joining us. She has a very special situation. I'm not going to go into it. She'll eventually let us loose in our situation. You can find her at Resume Lezlie, and that's Lezlie with a Z, right, Lezlie?
Yep.
ResumeLezlie.com. And of course, Ashley Watkins of RightStepResumes.com. How you doing, Lezlie and Ashley?
Good. Glad to be here.
Super happy to be
Good.
here. Thank you so much.
Yes, we are here. And if you guys are just joining us for the first time, let us know what's happening. Right now, we have Debria joining us, and she didn't say where she is. I forgot, but she joins the show every week. Michael's here. Prasanthi is from South Africa. It must be I don't know what the time zone is in South Africa, but I'm sure it's a little bit of ways from here as far as the time, probably about 7 or 8 hours, if not longer. Let us know what time zone or how many hours you are from America, and we'll indulge in that discussion. We have a bunch of things intact, and of course, mostly we prioritize your questions and your concerns regarding your job search. We have things that we could talk about here, but of course, at any particular time, we'll be able to stop and talk about your questions and concerns, because that's why we're here. So we're going to jump on board, and we're going to have to talk about remote work in several different facets here, because we've heard several different things, and I think each of us, we've served the public and other places and other people, that people tell us different things about remote working. One of the things that I think has come up is the idea that I think recently, Lezlie had mentioned that she's had clients that said they only want remote work and they only want remote jobs. And maybe, Lezlie, you can give us a little bit of insight as to how that conversation come about, or was that like one of their demands up front, that you're able to serve them in that kind of way?
It was one of their, I wouldn't say a demand, but it was one of the things that they outlined. Both of these two different clients, they outlined that before we actually started our work together. It was in one of their, for each one of them, it was in their initial communications that said, basically, here's who I am, here's what I'm looking for. Oh, and by the way, I only want to work remote positions ever again from here on out. So, and the fact that the two came sort of really close together, it just really struck me. I was like, wow, this is something that is starting to really be felt by a lot of job seekers. So
And probably we've discussed, so Jack and I have discussed on the show that people are wondering, where do they find these remote jobs? And there's a couple of sites that people can look on, but I think too that people also need to look at how that job will look like in their household, because that's what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with everything is about the life and your work, and it's almost hard to separate the both of them, right? So I'm gonna put this out here for you, Ashley, at first. What are some defining metrics, or there's some ways that you've told people you go about finding remote work?
One of the sites that I like to use for remote work is Flex Jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they can get a variety of things. They can do not only work from home opportunities, but there's contract, full-time, part-time, telecommute. They're partly remote, so they get a taste of what those particular jobs are requiring, and so they can make get a pretty good idea of whether or not those are some functions they can carry out at home. For instance, when I transitioned to working in as a recruiter, working in the office work versus at home, the point that I made hate was you guys never see me anyway, because I'm always in the office, shut door on the phone all day long. Why am I driving to work? For one, getting dressed, because I'm not a morning person. So why am I getting dressed, sitting in traffic to get to my desk, sit there with the door closed all day long? So,
Yeah.
a lot of times positions aren't initially, remote, but if you can prove your case, of how you could be effective, if not more effective, by working from home, I mean, that's something that I say go for it, especially if you give the employer the ability to serve a different time zone, because you're working from home, and maybe you offer that flexibility. Maybe you're going to be, available to customers later or earlier, depending on your time zone. So those are things that I always encourage them to think about, even if they see an opportunity that's not remote, that maybe that's a conversation they can have within the negotiation process. So to be a little bit more open, but I'm the same way. I don't know that I could have to go to an office every single day again. I tried it right before I went full time, and it did not work at all.
Yeah, I imagine. Jack, you lead quite a huge group on Facebook. We Meet Up, I believe is called. Do you ever get questions like that about finding a remote position?
It does seem to be the trend. It seems that, I think, my own opinion, I think it's going to play out some kind of hybrid, where it's going to be a little bit of both, where, like, I'm curious, actually, would you, give it a chance, would you go like 2 days a week to work, or you would into an office, or you just rather always be home?
As long as one of the days was not Monday, yeah, I probably would consider.
Because that's what it's because I've been writing a lot about this, and it seems like what these companies are converging is that kind of hybrid where, hey, maybe 2 or 3 days a week. And it's so funny you say that, because some of these companies are saying, and we got to make sure you're not working at home Monday and Friday, and everyone's at Monday and Friday, because which shows that the company doesn't trust their people when they say that. But that's another episode we'll talk about. But it does seem that it's going to be this kind of hybrid where you'll either work remotely, you work in the office, maybe 2 days, 3 days a week in the office. And it's going to be fluid, because it seems like, number one, these companies are a little scared to get everybody back en masse, that, it could spread. But yet they're also a little worried to have everybody working at home. So they're trying to kind of juggle all that together. And I notice with the people I speak to, both when I'm recruiting for them or, in like the We Meet Up group, it's a mixed message, because I think after a year, a lot of people who are stuck at home, I shouldn't say stuck, were at home, they enjoyed it. But then after a while, they're just getting stir crazy. And if they can go out and go to the office a couple of days a week, that could be a good deal.
Right. Especially for extroverts who have to have that people interaction. And sometimes it's just more effective to get your job done if you can just pop your head into someone's office versus waiting on an email or trying to jump on the phone with them when they're also on call. So yeah, it can work. It just depends. I went to the office. I worked from Monday through Friday at home, and I went to the office on Fridays, but that was usually because we had office lunches, so we would all get together, and
so you make sure you're there at the lunchtime.
Right, we would go home. We would combine. That sounds horrible, right? But we would combine some work stuff in there, and that was sort of our staff meeting that we had every week to catch up with where I was with recruiting, because it was a small HR department. It was only 4 of us in that office at the time, so it worked. So it just depends. But I think going to an office on Mondays are rough for me anyway, because I'm trying to recover from, I can do what I want to do on the weekend. And then now I have to shift back into, to that mode. And for being someone who's traditionally, I've never been a morning person, not even as a child. My mom says, you have not changed since you were a baby. I had the hardest time waking you up in the morning. And that's me. My brain doesn't work. I'm not excited or energetic until mid-morning, 9, 10 o'clock, to have to be to work right at 8 o'clock and then be expected to, be energetic and nice and, and all of these things. And I don't drink coffee. I don't drink caffeine really for real at all. But yeah, I don't think like that. Now I can work later. I'm a night hawk. So, night owl. So I'm up very, very late hours. I do my best writing in the middle of the night.
Yes.
But I
do my best writing
at a certain time.
I wonder if you could do this.
Yeah,
what do you think of this, Ashley? Do you think that that in addition to like the remote versus hybrid, they could also stagger schedules too, just for exactly what you're talking about? Yeah. Why should they make someone like you, who's not a morning person, get up early and be in the morning? It doesn't make sense, because you can be more productive late at night. Right? If I was the manager, I'd rather you be in late at night.
I think Lezlie has a different perspective about that. What do you think?
Well, different necessarily. I think it's just another way to possibly approach it, which
Yeah.
is to, I love the staggered scheduling because then you can fit the scheduling to your people's needs. But also I think it may be possible to do a rotating schedule where you only have to work on, a Monday or a Friday, once a month or something like that, so that people have that accountability and responsibility to make sure they're fully staffed throughout the week. But
Mhm.
also you have other times, the majority of your time, where you would be able to be on a schedule that works better for you. So I think either or a combination of both, the staggering and the sort of rotating schedule, might work well to just make sure you're fitting it to every person's specific needs and getting the most out of each of the employees. So
Right. That would look better for me, too,
Yeah.
because I could be like, okay, this week I have to prepare my mind to be in
right.
the office or whatever, but I
Yep.
still know that it's coming. I have something to look forward to. I'm like, yeah, this is where I'm rocking and grooving if it works for the company. So I'm willing to, to take that compromise. But if you give me an opportunity to pick, I'm at home every single day.
But do
I'm
you
out.
think do you think there should be worry for people that if they just work remotely, after a while, they're going to be like out of sight, out of mind, and they could fall behind in their careers? You know what I mean? Like, let's say the four of us are all together in the office, we go out for lunch, and we're bonding, and then there's like four people just all around the country working remote, and they feel left out. And then
Mhm.
we get the promotions, we get the raises. I mean, do you think that could be a thing that could play out?
Very
I think,
interesting.
I think for a good company, number one, a good company is going to go out of their way to build in processes that make sure that there are touch points with everyone. But also as an employee, I think it's on you, just like it would be in the office, to make yourself seen, to have that communication with people, to
Yeah.
continuously be in front of the right people, to be pushing harder or doing a little bit more than what's expected so that you can continue to improve and advance in your career.
You know what? That brings up a good point. What would you suggest to people who are either working remotely all the time, planning on working, or even most of it? How do you do that? Like, how do you get in front of your manager? Like, just any techniques you could think of so that they don't fall off the radar?
I think
That's a
regular
very
meeting,
interesting question.
regular
Interesting
checkpoint.
question.
Yeah, regular check-ins. I know with
Yeah.
my supervisor, not only did she work from home as well, but she worked in a completely different state, completely different time zone. We only met each other face to face, I think, once, and
Wow.
she was my supervisor for probably, I think, four years, maybe 4 years. And so it was important for us to actually see each other and get to know each other. So we would actually have conference calls where the majority of it, was via phone, but we had to make a point to actually see each other face to face and get to know each other outside of what was going on at work. So we had, calls where she got to know us individually. It was 9 of us on the recruiting team. So I mean, we would do that amongst each other too. And like, hey, let's just jump on a conference call, a video conference instead of, because at that time, I mean, Zoom wasn't really a thing. This was like 2012, 2013. And, you weren't really doing that. We used the
I got to, then
inner
do
office.
what phones do we have then? Was that the flip phones? I'm losing track of time.
No,
No,
I
no,
actually
we
remember.
had smartphones
7
in
years? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
2013.
yeah. There were,
Yeah,
yeah, there were smartphones.
we had the iPhones then.
Mhm.
Prasanti, she relates to you, Ashley, saying that I am not a morning person and never been. I think I've switched out from being a morning to being a night person, though I've been all of it over the past year,
Mhm.
where I've been at night, I've been morning, I've been middle of afternoon. There's several reasons for that, but all that. But having said that, though, there are scenarios like the one that Lezlie is in, and maybe Lezlie can go a little bit deeper into that. I'll let her unveil that. But you can't tell by her background, but I think it's really important to this part of the discussion. Go ahead, Lezlie.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. For those of you who are familiar, you may be able to tell by my background, but I would say most people probably can't. So I have been a full-time digital nomad since summer of 2017. I travel the country in my RV, which is where I am right now. I travel with my partner, Andy. He's my partner in business and in life. He helps me with all the back end of the business and a lot of the ideation and creating new things. So he helps a lot with all the things that I'm doing. And then we also have an adventure dog, Jax. He loves being on the road with us. So that's what I do. And all the work that I do with clients is fully remote. So it's either email or it's phone calls or occasionally, a Zoom session or something like that. But yeah, everything I do is remote. It takes some work to make sure that we have the power that we need, to make sure that we have the internet data that we need to go live like I am right now and things like that. It's definitely different from work from home. There are a lot of considerations that aren't really there, but there is a huge community of full-time RVers who are either self-employed like I am, or especially over the last year and even over the last 4 to 5 years, there have been more RVers showing up who are employed by companies and who are able to work fully remotely and travel, and really have that lifestyle and be able to see the country and do different things that you're not able to do if you're tethered to being at home, which I know some positions, even if you're remote, you're work from home. But it's really neat to see this community of people and to hear about all the different ways that people work remotely and travel and things like that.
And I think we're going to see, and I think that we're going to see more people do that, especially now that people have been locked up for a while. They're going to look for ways to be out and about.
Yes.
And I think the new working world is going to have many more people who are not going to have one particular home, one particularly stationary place that they'll work from, which it's going to bring up several different questions. One kind of jumps into the other part of the remote discussion is that people are also working a lot of hours while they're also remote. And I think, Jack, you kind of had an article that kind of addressed part of that issue. One is that there are people working still working 100 hours during the pandemic, which is mind-boggling. But the fact that the people really, there's not going to be one look to this new workplace that we're looking at.
Yeah, it's interesting. So with Goldman, these young bankers were complaining they're working 100 hours a week. And, at first blush, you're like, oh my God, this is horrible. But then you realize, all right, they're making a little under 100. These are young people, like, 2 years out of college or so. So they're making about 100 grand plus bonus. So all of a sudden it's not so bad. But I bet you between all of us, right, if you think about how many hours you put in a week during the pandemic, I bet you it's kind of adds up because,
Sure.
For me being in, and I don't know, your states are probably different, and Lezlie, you're different because you're all over the country, but like in New Jersey, we're pretty still locked down, so there's not much to do. So I find myself working, not because I'm like this crazy hustle porn guy, but like I have nothing else to do. I can't go to literally the movies were all closed, the restaurants, I don't know, it's not the same. You can't go to any sporting events, so you work.
Yep. And then somebody like me, I don't have kids yet. So in that sense, there's nothing really tugging me away, from work. Now, while I may not work the traditional work week because the time that I spend, working with clients and maybe writing may be a lot shorter, but the things that I'm having to do operationally, brainstorming, the researching, all of that, if I find a second in the day that that I'm not doing anything, I'm like, oh, let me go look up this. Oh, let me look up this. And before you know it, it's freaking 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, I gotta wait.
You're probably doing like 100 hours a week when you factor in, because that's
when
work.
I look at it, the stuff that I'm doing outside of when I'm physically working, because I don't like to work in a physical office either. So while I'm in my office right now, this is really what it's used for: the videos, and the recordings and stuff like that. I'm usually on the couch, I'm on the patio, I'm wherever I need to be at that time, working. So I used to get in trouble for this at work when my boss would see me, on live, online, see me active and say, why are you, what are you doing? Why are you working? Like you've already put in your time. Like, why are you still working? And I'm like, oh, because I'm sourcing. I ran into this candidate. I can do this, real quick. It only take me a little bit. And before you know it, that time adds up, but I'm not looking at it like this because it was fun to do for one, and it was helping me get caught up so I could have the amount of flexibility I need during the actual week. So yeah, I can see how you can put in those 100 hours, like
right? Without even really, and also
clockwork. Yeah.
recruiting, when you're doing the sourcing, it's
Mhm.
addictive, isn't it?
It
It's like,
is.
right? It's like, all right, one more, just, I'm gonna find one more, give me, another half hour, and I'm gonna, another hour.
Yep.
Because Mark, Leslie, it's like it's like you get in that zone, right? You get that flow, and you like want to find those candidates so badly that you lose track of time, right? And you're like, oh my God, I gotta stop. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I had to train myself not to respond to people at 2 and 3 o'clock in the
Yeah.
morning, unless they were my international clients. Then that's something completely different. But if somebody sends me a message, I see it. I'm like, let me go ahead and get this out of the way. That's less I have to worry about the next day. But oh, they're scheduling messages, so you have to
and
start
you
doing
and
that.
you bring up another layer to this whole discussion, is that really remote working will bring up the aspect that yes, business can be transactional 24/7 now.
Mhm.
But what will the expectations be
Right.
going forward? If you have a job where you can do things at any particular time, if it's project based, so basically it's based on whenever you engage and when you disengage. Having said that, there are going to be international folks that you may have to relate to. So how is that going to manage in the swing, and will that actually show up in pay and some other things that make that we associate with hours, that now that might be wiped away because the job is now multifaceted and it's going to have many touch points during the day perhaps.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the
Hard
idea,
to
so the
manage.
idea of, so the idea of perhaps that maybe there'll be different expectations for hours,
Mhm.
which will go down a very slippery slope, if you know what I'm saying,
Right.
when it comes to what's your time and what's company time, and how will you be able to tell one from the other,
Right.
which
And
also becomes a very interesting facet of all this.
right. And not to take over the conversation, but yeah, that was the biggest issue that I had in like performance evaluations, was saying like, you got to learn when to shut off, because there's your work life and then there's there's your personal life that you should be nurturing too. But I'm like, when it's blended and I'm doing what I love to do, it's hard to shut off. So people think
Mhm.
working from home is so much fun and oh, you have so much flexibility. But that flexibility lends itself to you not having those social cues that it's time to cut off. You don't see people going to lunch. You don't see people packing up for the day. You don't see other people doing, those things that will say, oh, you know what? I probably do need to eat. Everybody else is going to lunch. I probably need to eat. I don't have that. My
Right.
dogs sleep all day. So, I don't have those cues to say, oh, it's time to eat. It's time to shut down, until I started working in natural light. And then once the sun goes down, there's no more light to work with. So
So
that
that's,
that
yeah,
was my reminder.
that's it. Actually, so interesting you brought this up because I just wrote about this today. So Jane Fraser, she's the first female CEO of a bank, and it's Citibank. And she actually sent out a memo to everybody saying exactly what you're doing. That because of all the things you brought up, she was saying, hey, you have to disconnect. On Fridays, there's going to be no Zoom calls within the organization. They took one day they made up a holiday just so everyone could take off, because they realized they were having people doing exactly what you're doing, and they
Mhm.
needed to say, no, it's okay to power down. And we want you to do that because you're going to burn out otherwise.
Right.
Yeah, but if we're all listening to Goldman Sachs, can you imagine what that culture has been like? That's been permissive to work 100 hours a week.
Insane.
That they actually love all that,
Yeah.
and all. I mean, they bring it out like this is a problem. Well, this has also been part of your culture for many, many, many years. It's not anything new or anything that we would say, really, Goldman Sachs, come on. No, we kind of know what the deal is
Mm.
because we know what the MO is, and that's where job seekers will probably have to do a deeper research and a deeper dive into a company's culture, other than just how they pay, how they do vacation, what the hours are expected. You've got to dig a little bit deeper
Mhm.
if you don't want to get caught in the trap. And by the way, I want to kind of go back to Ashley, your statement about flex jobs. Flex jobs allows 2 weeks as a membership free, and
Yeah.
then you go into a pay model.
Mhm.
So
I think it's
people
like
using flex
49 a
jobs,
year.
Yeah, for the 49, I think you catch the right deal, you can catch the lower end, which I think is actually $50 a year.
Mhm.
But the great thing about flex jobs that I love, and I'm not trying to do a commercial with God because I've worked with them before and I've written for them before, is that you can that they vet the people that put on the job boards,
Mhm.
that they've already determined that they're legit flex jobs. But having said that, there are other people who get caught into scams because they want a flex job, they want a remote job so badly that they will take the first thing they see on Indeed, who doesn't vet as well as FlexJob does, and they get caught up in the cycle and say, "Oh, well, this wasn't a really remote, flexible jobs. This is really what the deal is." So I think that job seekers have to kind of look out for that actual part of it. Do we have anything else about flexible
Yeah,
work
wait,
hours that we want to dig into?
oh, go ahead, Leslie.
I was just going to sort of comment on what Ashley said about working when the sun is up and taking that as a cue. I really like that, number one, from just a sort of natural human aspect of getting away from letting technology just rule everything that we do. And it's actually something that I sort of am forced to do just by the nature of the lifestyle that I live as an RVer. So Jack, you mentioned earlier, I'm traveling all over the country. Of course, with COVID, we did not do that. We really hunkered down in just a few places and basically just went to where the weather would allow us to still stay in our RV. But that entire time, we were plugged into electric. And that is not our typical lifestyle as RVers. So we actually like to do what's called dry camping as much as possible. So that means we're fully self-sufficient. We
Wow.
rely on our battery and solar power, our own onboard water. All of that stuff lets us stay in really gorgeous places. But it really lends itself well, Ashley, to what you were saying. It's like, we run on solar, so we can work as long as the sun is up, and then we have to either switch to some backup battery power or basically just sort of disconnect and kind of do other things. So that's one of the things that I love about the RV lifestyle. And I love that you are sort of trying to do that even stationary in a home, is like, hey, let's let nature, tell us when we should be sleeping or working or whatever. So I really love that you said that. And I love that that's out there and that other people can kind of think to do that.
So
That's
you're
really
living
cool.
a nomad life. I take it you've seen that movie or no?
I haven't. I've heard about it. I just haven't had the time to sit down and watch it. From what I've heard, it centers more around someone who was kind of forced into living in an RV or something like that, which is a little bit different from my lifestyle of kind of choosing to do it. But I've heard it's a really, really good movie,
Great
and Frances
movie.
McDormand is awesome, so I'm sure it is.
It's great. She was kind of maybe initially forced, but she really loved that lifestyle and loved the community. And she would drive around in her RV, and I guess they would have different places. They'd meet up at different times of the year. It was like a whole culture that developed.
Yeah, it's really, really neat. I honestly, my partner and I both feel like we have found better friends, people that are more in line with the type of people we are doing this RVing, even though the people we're meeting are from all over the country, sometimes all over the world. When we were stationary in a place, it was harder to meet the right types of people because you're just stuck with who you're working with, who you're living near, who your neighbors are, whatever. And oftentimes that can work well, and you can meet really cool people that you vibe with. For us, we weren't that lucky. So being on the road, you have to be a certain type of crazy, I think, to choose this lifestyle. And that for us has been really beneficial and has helped us to meet people that are in line with the things that we enjoy, and people that we connect with a lot more closely than we have stationary over the last 10 years or so. So it's been really nice.
I've got a question here from Prasanti, and she has an interviewing question. She wants to know what we think when interviewing. If you are really selling yourself, your abilities, accomplishments, etc., do the interviewers see this as you being overconfident or obnoxious? Great question. Thank you very much, Prasanti. Let's start with Ashley. Your thoughts regarding is selling yourself. I guess it depends how it comes across. do you think that interviewers see you as being confident, or being confident even, or being obnoxious?
I think when it comes to how you sell yourself, it is about, it's more about how you say something versus what you say. In instances where you are really good and say your personality is good, you're not coming off very, braggadocious or anything, you're just proud of your accomplishments. I'm excited as a recruiter to interview someone like that, because the more information you give me, the more information I have to take back to the hiring team, and they can make a decision a whole lot better than just having your resume or just having your online application to deal with. So you actually do yourself a service, if you can, communicate that very articulately. If you know your accomplishments as they relate to the position, you are making the recruiter's job easier, and we are excited to pass you along. In the other sense, if you're giving me accomplishments and bragging about stuff that I really don't care about, I don't care that you homecoming queen and stuff, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, you're probably going to rub somebody the wrong way because you're not giving me what I need and you're not staying on task. But otherwise, I would say go for it. If you don't toot your own horn, nobody will. Take the chance.
Yeah, Jack, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a fine line. You want to come across confident for sure, because that's what a hiring manager wants. Well, a hiring manager, really, at the end of the day, they want to feel comfortable that if Ashley or Leslie is interviewing, they could do the job. They can make my life easier. Thank you. That's what you want. You want to just feel that vibe. They can do it. Conversely, I think, and Mark and I talked about this in the past, a big challenge we've noticed, and I'm curious if you've seen it in your line of work, is that after a year, even before a year in the pandemic, people lost their self-esteem and self-confidence. So when they interview, they come across so poorly. They come across, they've lost their faith in themselves. They almost go into it knowing they're not going to get it, if that makes sense. And it's really rough and it's tough. But the other end of the spectrum is when people say, hey, I've been doing this for 30 years and here's what I've done. And they come in pontificating, and that, I think, turns off people too, where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to listen to this blowhard every day and they know everything, and forget it. You don't want to hire someone like you think that they're gonna have the answer to everything, and it's just be so annoying. So I think you have to have the right mix where you don't want to come across, resentful that you're out of work, bitter, angry at the circumstances, but at the same time, you don't want to come across like everything, you have all the answers, you're God's gift to this area, and it'll just alienate everybody too. So there's that fine line where you want to be confident but not bragging, so feel good about yourself, be able to say your accomplishments, and have people say, oh, okay, yeah, this makes sense, this person could do the job.
Yeah, you can't overtake the interview.
Yeah,
right. Leslie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with both Jack and Ashley. I would also say that it is a lot better to be confident in your skills and your abilities, and also, especially in any communications that you have throughout the hiring process, to be number one, open to learning. So to Jack's point, someone who is just overly confident and sort of arrogant and says, well, I've been doing it for 30 years. And usually that's followed by something to the effect of, I know how it's done. And, they're not, they're not open to learning. So I think number one, you have to have that openness to learning more, to adapting to a new company and the processes that they have. And then number two, I would say that it's important to be able to, guys, I lost my train of thought. Oh, here we go. You want
we
to
just
be
saying how awesome we are
eager.
as hosts.
You want to be eager to share your knowledge in ways that help the company. So not just coming in and saying, I'm good at this and I'm good at that, but coming in with ideas that say, hey, I have I'm strong in this area, and I think that can help you by, and then give an example. I think it's that eagerness also to utilize your skills for the benefit of the company, and not just being confident for the sake of your own ego.
Yeah. I think I have several thoughts regarding that. First of all, anybody who says you start to use 20 to 30 years as an arbitrage really is kind of also using a double-edged sword, in the sense that 20, 30 years of experience often translates to, oh, so you don't know anything about technology. But the other part is that if you are going to take a moment and assert your accomplishments, at least make it contextually correct. In other words, make it so that people can relate what you've done that works relates to what they need in the office. And to your point, Ashley, it made me think of a funny story to where my college best friend was also we were really close in high school. She was our college homecoming queen who never pushed off her accomplishments, never really talked about them again. However, I have also somebody else I went to high school with that was like believe it or not, she was the first Hooters girl nationally, the very first. So shout out to Lynn Austin. She'll probably kill me for saying this, but but I've seen times when, you know, people use these accolades as a weapon where really sometimes they're not a weapon and it really doesn't serve them. It becomes more harmful than anything else. It's almost like you almost want to turn around and just turn the sword on yourself, because you putting your accomplishments where it isn't contextually correct or appropriate. It kind of kills your opportunity in a way that the employer looks at you.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. So if hopefully Prasanti, that helps you. Shout out to Cynthia Pong, who just joined us. How you doing, Cynthia? That's my girl from New York, fellow New Yorker. Anyway, the other part about interviewing, and I think that, and let's talk about this because I think it's not a part of interviewing, but it does have something to do with presenting yourself, is the idea that we've had discussion in Twitter, and I involved all of you, and it came from a discussion where somebody was really struggling with a good pitch. Somebody made a comment about this to him and said that was like the worst thing, and it really didn't. I won't go into the whole discussion, but I was just wondering how relevant, and you can rehash your Twitter comments if you like. How relevant is is an elevator pitch these days when you're meeting people or when you're networking, whether it's online or in person? How relevant is to have a good one these days, or is it relevant to have a good one?
I think it's very relevant. That's my short answer. As far as the clients that I have that struggle with developing their pitch, and they say, "Well, I don't think I need one. I'm not in sales," or I'm just a this." You know, they always minimize themselves. They shrink themselves into something where it may not be necessary. And I'm like, your pitch should help someone decide why they want to hire you over the other choices that they have, because you're probably one of maybe 200-300 even that they're
Sure.
picking from, and you have to have something that sets you apart in a relevant way, in a beneficial way. And if they don't know what what their pitch is, or they think I have to have this long drawn out thing, it doesn't have to take a minute. It's just a couple seconds, especially if you're trying to network. It's important, if you want people to help you find a job, they have to first understand what you do, and then what you hope to gain. So when you're asking your network to, hey, find an opportunity for me, the way that you streamline those opportunities is to be able to educate people about what it is that you do. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm a marketer, so help me. No, you have to explain, I'm this, I want to work for these type of companies, I do these types of things. Here's what I want to do. And people, aha, okay, I know this opportunity. Because half the time they're just going to send you anything that they see open, from customer service to whatever, because you just said, I just want a job. So you have to be very specific with it. So it could work in either aspect, I think.
Yeah, Lezlie, your thoughts?
I think it's a very relevant tool for communication in general, and for getting clarity on the part of the job seeker about what their value is. So I don't typically think of it or refer to it necessarily as this, one structural elevator pitch. It's more about defining what your professional brand is, and then using that to cultivate the rest of your communications, from your resume to the ways that you reach out to people. And I think that your elevator pitch, if you want to call it that, can be and perhaps even should be very sort of a living statement that changes based on who you're talking to, who you're trying to get attention from. So yeah, I think it is important, but not necessarily to box up and say, this is my elevator pitch, I have one, I'm good. It's more about using that as a tool to both gain clarity about what value you offer, and also practice communicating what you offer to others and adapting that based on who that person is that you're talking to.
Yeah, I like the idea of shout out to Dorothy Dalton, a colleague of ours that mentioned that she likes the 15 to 30-second pitch. Jeff DePiro, who just commented, thanks for your comment here, Jeff. He says, my elevator pitch is down to 5 seconds. Attention spans that long. And I think that's where I like to head. 5 to 15 second, the shorter the better these days, because really people can now click, like if you're on LinkedIn, they can easily put the arrow above your name and bubble and see who you are. And that's how long as it takes for someone to read that particular pitch should be the amount of time that you allow. I think if you go longer than 15 seconds, you are taking a risk of losing someone for that particular time, and maybe might come across as, somebody that likes to hear themselves talk. Jack, your thoughts?
I'll take this from the perspective of a recruiter. If I'm interviewing somebody or someone's asking me about a job, I really need them to articulate what they've done and what they're looking to do next in a really clear, concise fashion. So this way I can kind of get my arms around, okay, either A, this person is great for the job that I'm recruiting for, or B, they seem fantastic. I don't have a job for them now, but I really want to stay in touch with them for the future. And that really, I'm not really so hard and fast on how long or short it would be, but it's more of, can this person just tell me, hey, here's what I do. I do X, Y, and Z, and here's what I want to do next, and here's a compensation I'm looking for, and so on. So this way I got this really nice tight package about this person, and that helps me to help them. And I think what happens is we run into so not only did I spill my drink all over the place, I keep getting phone calls here. So my tech is awesome today. What I see happens with a lot of job seekers is they haven't practiced an elevator pitch. They don't have one. They feel just having the name elevator pitch sounds kind of icky, so they don't even want to do it. And they fail sometimes in the interview because they really can't put forward their value proposition, who they are and what they're about. So people lose interest, or they don't know, or they go too far back in time. They're going back to high school, they're going back to college. They're talking about these jobs they did 20 years ago. So I think it's really important that you have to fine tune it so that whether you're dealing with a recruiter, an HR person, or when you're networking and you're speaking to Ashley or Lezlie and say, hey, can you help me find a job? Maybe, yeah, what do you do? And then you can just boom, just make it easy, because too long they're like, I don't want to help you. You're just going to be a time suck.
Yeah, Cynthia agrees with you. She says people can't help you unless you make it crystal clear for them. We're all overwhelmed and overloaded these days. Help them help you. Thank you, Cynthia, for mentioning that. Yeah, I really agree that clarity is really a big issue with some of these elevator pitches, is that people want to go into areas that doesn't matter to the person that's talking to. So I think you have to customize it for not only the medium that you're using. So if it's online or Zoom, the shorter the better, but you also have to customize to the audience and not make, so you have to be, I don't know what you call it. It's not emotional intelligence, but you have to be flexible and agile enough to where if you see somebody in front of you, they don't care how many certifications you have, right? Because certification doesn't mean a whole lot to someone. They want to know what's going to be valuable for them and what they need to know for those next few minutes or ongoing. And the more that you can customize your pitch, practically you'll need to do it like on on the swivel if you're meeting a lot of people, and if you have an understanding of your audience and what they need, then you can move that way to elevator pitch. But I thought it was worthy to have a discussion about it because people are elevating pitches as long as a minute, and I'm like, oh God. I'm a deer in the
A minute
headlights.
is way
That's
too long.
way too long now. Our span is about 5 to 15 seconds. I think that's about right.
I think our
Anybody
attention
want to?
span is shorter now, right? I think for all of us, we don't have, right? We don't have the patience to listen to a minute or 2 minutes.
We don't have the patience for 30 seconds. I really think I think that's where it comes to. Now we're having a discussion like this. This is contextual, of course. It's 4 of us, and we're all providing context and providing specific help for people, as opposed to if you're meeting someone and they want to know what value proposition you have for them or what matters to them, you don't have that much more time.
Yeah,
You
if
gotta
I open
hook
a text
'em.
as a paragraph, I'm checked out. So short
Yeah.
bursts of communication, short cover letters, the shortest resume you can possibly have, which, typically 1 page, 2 page, whatever it's going to be. Give me what I need and only that.
I
Keep
think
it
I would
relevant.
even say, even in comments online, the shorter the better. And
Yes.
some people cannot write a 2-sentence comment to save their lives. And I'm like,
And they
I'm
said all of
gone.
that to say nothing.
Yes, and said all of that to say nothing. And you and I have been on some threads, Ashley. You and I have been on some threads where people have gone on. It's like, okay, I'm either going to spend time to decipher it, or I'm going to move on to somebody who said it in a lot shorter time.
Right.
So
I think when it comes down to the commenting stuff, like I'm trying to respond to each comment, I'm trying to engage with my colleagues and things like that. I don't want to take over the conversation that somebody else is having, right? So if this
yeah,
is Leslie's post and she's giving information about resumes, sure, we're neck and neck with the information that we can give, but I'm not there to compete with Lezlie to give way more information or to upstage her or whatever. I'm just there to say, hey, I support you in this. Here's another takeaway. Boom, say it, get out.
yeah.
There's only so many characters she has in this post. Sure, she knows almost exactly the same thing, same things that I know, but it's not important for me to download everything that I know about every single
I
thing.
love that word, download.
These posts. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot to unpack. I'm not unpacking it, but okay, I'm just going to click like on it and keep it moving.
And to that point, I think it's really important to be situationally aware, when we're talking about, make your elevator pitch as short as possible. That I think is definitely true when you don't have that person's attention, when you haven't hooked them yet. It's understanding where you are in the process, how much people are interested in hearing from you. Like Mark, to your point, when we do a live, people will hang out for an hour or whatever, but that's because they've chosen to be here. They have the expectation that they're going to learn things and that, it might be an hour or whatever. I think it's about being situationally aware throughout your job search process with, okay, this person doesn't have any reason to care what I'm saying to them or barely any reason. So let me hook them as quickly as I can with something really juicy. And then when they want to know more, I can give them a little more and then a little bit more, so knowing where you are in the situation, reading the room and reading the people across from you can all help to make sure you're not going on too long, but you're not cutting yourself too short either.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think there's a difference between being helpful. If you're helpful, give the person what they need to know instead of trying to impress people with your help. That's where people get caught in the matrix, and you have these diatribes in elevator pitches that kind of go. You've already lost someone from the beginning. Can you imagine you're hoping to get a referral for someone and you have this minute pitch and 35 seconds, they're gone already. They're already thinking about the Far Side comic they want to post on Facebook. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but that's where people have to really kind of get their communication down to. Make it good for 2 sentences. If that, get out of there. Get out of Jack. Anything you want to add to the discussion before we go on?
You talk yourself out of it because it's like in sales. Once you got it done, that's it. You shut up. You know,
Yeah.
you got the offer, you got the yes, you shut up, and that's it. There's so many people, you talk past the sales, and you keep trying, you keep going and going, and then you lose it. And then you take, instead of having victory, you just they realize, hey, I just don't want to deal with this person. He's going to be too difficult.
Yeah, yeah, and I can see, just to let you guys know, warn you, this may turn up in an article somewhere down the line, somewhere, but I think it's true. Clarity is key. Or finally, let's talk about job listings. We could talk about job listings in a lot of different ways because most of them are so badly written and vague. Some of them are just way too long, like we discussed about having the elevator pitch. And a job listing, I think, in a lot of ways can be an elevator pitch from an employer's point of view, being that they've said what they said, they're real clear about what they want and the type of candidate they want, and then go ahead and be clear about how you want it delivered. But I think there are times when, too, that job listings kind of go off the way. And I think originally in our chat, Lezlie, you brought up the job listing aspect, what didn't you? Was it you or was it Jack? I kind of lost my thought here for a moment.
Don't think that was me. I know I came
No,
on a little bit late.
Yeah, I think it might have been, or was it you, Ashley? I lost my train of thought here. But I guess we could discuss it in the sense that, and I think it's really important because job listings, they're one part of it that I've experienced, and I had a discussion about a month ago with someone who said that the job that they applied for wasn't anything like what was posted. And I think, people will need to learn to do deeper research than just the job listing itself. But, a lot of us have advised people who said, use Indeed to get the intel from the job listing. But I think you also got to go to other places where the job listing is to get more clarity about it, because a lot of them, Jack, maybe you can lend some insight into it, and maybe your field isn't particularly job listing heavy. Or is it?
Yeah. I hate the job listings. It's like a Frankenstein. You have somebody who maybe had an older version, in the HR department about a certain role. Then they hand it off to the manager. They put their 2 cents in, then they put it to somebody else, and then you get this kind of hybrid thing that doesn't make sense. You put in, it's ridiculous. You look at a job listing and it'll have all these ingredients, like these 12 listings, and you think, wow, this is like a managing director role. This seems so important. And then you go all the way down to the bottom, and it's just an associate level. And it's like, what, that doesn't make any sense. And they'll put in requirements that so few people have. It's for some reason, they don't pay a lot of attention to what the market is out there, what people have and what they don't have. They just feel, okay, we're going to put down these 20 points, and yeah, of course people are going to have it. But oftentimes they don't. They may have 3 of them or 4 of them or 5 of them. Mm-hmm. So it ends up either, and this is the weird thing that happens. You don't get the results you want. So you put it out there. So then you have the cocky people who feel, oh, I could do any job, and they'll send a resume, and they get annoyed that they get the resumes where you don't have the experience. And the people who actually have the experience, but they don't have all 10 or 20, they only have 5, they're being, what they feel is being honorable and saying, well, I don't have all of them, so I'm not going to apply, but they're really good, so they don't apply. So the very thing that they're trying to do backfires on that. And it's been the same way for like the 20 plus years I've been doing recruiting, and it hasn't changed. Think about everything else changed, but the job description, like 25 years later, pretty much the same boring, bland thing.
Yeah, well, and I think it comes down to people don't say what they really want and what's really necessary. Instead, they had this image of the ideal candidate that doesn't exist. So therefore, everybody looks at it and go, "Wow, okay." Not sure. And then they don't tell everything that they really need. So when they say, well, I have all the qualifications, but we really need this. I mean, it's exhausting.
And they're not honest either. Like,
and they're not honest, right?
They're not going to say, okay, we're really going to make you work late hours. All right, maybe you don't want to hear that, but at least you respect the fact they're saying it. Or we're going to make you come in really early in the morning. So then,
and nobody says that, but that's what ends up being. Yeah, nobody ever says it.
And then be honest about, like, they're not honest about the culture of what's going on. Like you mentioned a really smart point, a while back about when we talk about going, that you really want to research the culture, because you don't want to go there and think, oh, okay, it's a great firm. And then you realize their expectations are ridiculous. So yeah, part of a job is going to be great if they said, hey, we have a really aggressive culture. We have like a sharp elbow. Everyone's out to get each other. You can put in nice words, but just level. They don't do it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They don't put it out
Right.
there.
I think
Right.
companies
Go ahead, Ashley.
should do video recordings of actual employees on the job posting of the day in the life of this job.
I
They
love
give
that.
one thing that they really love about their job and then one thing that they really don't like about the job, just so
Mhm.
you can have balance there. Because while it was a lot of stuff that I loved about recruiting, there were some things that you had to adjust to. There are some challenges, some hurdles. People need to really know about that stuff, because knowing, having that, it helps you make a better decision on whether or not you want to apply. Because the first thing I know, if you're telling me I got to be in the office all day, I could love the job, but I'm like, probably don't want to do that. Or if I have to be to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, probably not going to do that either. So, but I can probably refer and say, hey, I know somebody who can do that. So let me just send this to them, because that's not me. Just be more realistic and stop trying to sugarcoat things for the sake of getting a candidate who's going to quit in the first 90 days anyway.
So, okay, Mark, you have to edit this out, because I think this is a really good business idea. Seriously, I was thinking exactly what you're saying, actually. Like, how great would it be? You have a video, and let's say, Lezlie and Ashley, you're the hiring managers, and you just talk about, like, here's the job, here's what you're doing, here's what it's about. And then you could feel the vibe from both of you. You might say, oh, wow, they're cool. I definitely would like to work for them. Or, yeah, I'm not really crazy about them for whatever reason. But now you're an educated consumer as a job seeker. You're like, oh, and then you look around, like, say in the background, you can see the office. Maybe they take you around. Oh, that looks really cool. People there kind of look happy. They look, oh, all right. Or you look around and go, because I would see this all the time when I visit clients, and you look around, sometimes everyone's miserable. You're like, oh my God, what's up? Why is everyone's a frown? No one's talking to each other.
And I used to ask to go to the office. If I was a serious candidate, I was asked, could you give me a little tour of the office? And some of them that didn't, there was a really good reason why they didn't.
You know why? I know why you don't do it.
Yes, right. I mean, yeah, I can understand. But you could tell, even walking through the office many times, you could tell the people that have these remote places where they rather do the interview instead of doing it in the office where the interviewer, the hiring manager actually is. There's a reason for that. And I think you shouldn't dismiss that bit of intel as to say, oh, well, it's too loud over there. Well, you have a closed door, dude. Come on, really? So unless you work in a sawmill, I get that part. But Lezlie, your thoughts?
Yeah, on that topic of having video from real people, it's not quite as in-depth as what Jack was talking about, but from what I understand, there's a website called America's Career Info Net. I think it's acinet.org or .com, and they have videos of real people who have worked in such and such position. Basically, the website is a resource to do some research and to learn about different roles and different industries and things like that if you're not sure what you want to do. So I'll often point career changers there just as a very initial, like, sort of exploratory exercise. I don't use it a lot, so I'm not fully familiar with how in depth these videos go, but I do know that there are videos there from, say a project manager or something like that, where they kind of give the ins and outs and the actual sort of details about what the job is. I would imagine that it probably doesn't include the real talk of, some of the negatives. But at the very least, I know that that's a thing for people who are maybe exploring their options, not sure about a certain role. That can be a place where they can go to learn more about that. So
yeah, because it's not an open season to bash the company. It's just, if the position requires a lot of of travel, or when I hired for social workers, they went into difficult situations where kids were getting, abused. They had to maybe crawl around on the floor where it was in unsanitary conditions to research things, and it was taxing, on their mental, and they had to reset. So in order to have, that real deal, you get out of school thinking that, oh, this is going to be great, I'm going to help so many people, not realizing what that help actually looks like.
Actually, my niece does that. And she went through the same things, thinking, oh, I'm going to help people. This is great. And then it's like, oh, my God. Now, she's still doing it, but it would be nicer if they kind of let her know. And she's actually was doing all throughout the pandemic, which adds another layer of worry. But it would be
Mhm.
fair if they were honest and say, okay, it's not, you're all helping people. There's a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah, what are you
Yeah.
helping them from? That's the
Yeah.
nightmare, and you have to be prepared for that. And if something is going to require that I'm having to manage all these different moving pieces, okay, well, what does that require? Is that I may get a phone call in the middle of dinner, that I may be pulled away from a vacation to actually handle something because somebody got sick or got caught, if that's the expectation of what on call looks like, let me know that ahead of time, because that may excite me. But
Yeah.
then it may,
Mhm.
make me, okay, do I need to prepare in other areas of my life in order to be able to handle this type of thing? So I think while it may deter people, but those are people that were going to quit anyway.
See,
You
and
know,
what if you would be open and honest about it, you probably have better retention because
Mhm.
people know going with their eyes open. So, because like I'll do that when I prepare people for interviews, so they go in to manage expectations. Like, okay, Jack mentioned this might happen. I might not hear back from a while. Okay, so I'm not going to freak out. So if they just let people know this is what's going to go on, they're like, okay, this is happening, but they told me, I'm not happy that happens, but I get it. And I bet you people would stay longer with these companies.
Right. It builds trust and
Yeah,
transparency.
exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, absolutely. And I think and that's why when we talk about when we tell job seekers to target companies and to look into a culture and dig a little deeper, they have to answer their own questions where it looks to their lives, not just the way what you expect to get paid, get enough to get paid for, or do enough to get paid for. You got to dig a little bit deeper, because this now is not. Everything invades your home, so to speak. And I'm not talking about invade in a bad way, but it's crossing the line, and the lines are going to get blurred throughout time. So as we kind of move towards our close, let me just ask everybody, do they have a podcast interview or a newspaper quote we should look for coming up? Leslie, start with you.
I did not expect that question. I'm sorry,
I know,
guys.
that's why I asked it. Just tell people where you're going to be at.
Well, I go live every Tuesday on LinkedIn at 11 a.m. Central. So you can catch me there. And actually, because next Tuesday is a fifth Tuesday, which not all months have, I'm doing something a little bit outside the norm. I'm going to be talking about my RV life and actually doing a little bit of a tour around and outside the RV and showing you my power sources and stuff like that. So that's next Tuesday, but I'm live on LinkedIn every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central.
Good deal. Ashley, anything
I
coming up for
am.
you?
Yeah, so as far as podcasts, so Cynthia Pong and Cynthia Pong, there's Lisa Orbe Austin, Dr. Lisa Orbe
Mhm.
Austin. We have started a podcast, so we are doing it once a month, and the next one we have coming up. We did our first one in March, earlier this month on the 10th, I think, and then we're doing another one starting in April. So it'll be a monthly thing, and we're doing it on Wednesdays, midday. And we talk about different things, careers, imposter syndrome. We talk about resumes. We talk about leadership. Usually our topics are focused on women, but anyone can benefit from the conversation, join in the conversation. We interact with the comments and all of that. So look for that. It's called The Conversation.
Yes, it was very good.
And
I
it's on
saw the
LinkedIn
first
Live.
one.
On
Yes.
LinkedIn Live. Yep.
Yeah, I saw the first one. It's very good. Jack, anything coming up for you?
Yeah. Tomorrow I have did the series for compliance people, uh, looking to see with this new administration, and in my belief, it's going to be much more for regulation where it wasn't before, so there could be more jobs, more opportunity. So we have someone, a cybersecurity expert, we have an antitrust person, we have some other folks, a CCO, chief compliance officer, who are going to talk about, hey, where are the trends, what's going to happen. But here's another, this is crazy, Mark. I don't know, I don't think I mentioned this to you. So I got, it was from, I think, on a LinkedIn live I did, and then a subsequent article. So some company hit me up to be kind of a spokesperson for them. Do
Nice.
this
Very nice.
webinar kind of thing, which is, it's so random, it's so wild.
Mhm.
But it does coincide with what we're talking about for job seekers, because I subscribe, and Mark, we've talked about this, that I'm
Mhm.
curious, Ashley, Leslie, what you think. I subscribe to the theory, an object in motion stays in motion. So like if you're looking for a job or you do it, you got to keep doing and trying and doing different things, because the more you do it, you don't know what's going to work. A lot of things may not work, a lot of things may fail, but you know what? Every once in a while something sticks. So that by doing things, you gain attention, people notice you, and then you get opportunities. So it's really cool. So, it's nice when you practice what you preach. When you say these things and it happens, like, okay, I'm not crazy saying it because it does happen. So yeah, that's kind of odd. I'll let you know how it plays out. I mean,
Yeah, let me know.
But so far, yeah, it looks like very random.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I got reached out to last summer, and it's funny. This company is figuring out how they want to work with me, which was a really nice compliment. I mean, it's sort of like somebody saying, "We want to hire you, just let us figure out where we want to put you,"
Yeah.
which is kind of cool, and it's great to have the opportunity. I have about 5 podcasts, as opposed to coming out, that I've been a guest on. That some of them have been in about the 3 or 4 months publishing. So I have to let you all know when those come out next week or so. But I am going to sign off here. A big shout out to my wife. We just recently celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary.
Wow, congratulations.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's been a while. I just don't like to put it out there too much because I like to keep the wedding date concealed for privacy purposes, but you all get the message. In the meantime, thanks Job Seeker Nation for joining us. We'll be back next Wednesday. Jack and I will figure out something else that we'll be doing for that particular time. Thank you, Lezlie, Ashley, for joining us. Be sure you follow them, follow their websites, see what they're doing. They're always giving out great information. Signing off. Thank you very much for joining us.
Lezlie, nice meeting you.
Yeah, you guys too. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
That's fun.